Vince, I assume you're doing this as a favor to Shuli, and I thank you for that, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
You once had a stint as Stuttering John's co-host, or at least a reoccurring guest on his show. And that's probably when I first got to know you. I loved you on Stuttering John's show. I loved when you would talk to him about the ROTC guys. I actually went back and watched again when you were laughing because they were doing the British John bit. And what was great was you were telling John, like, these guys are pretty funny. And he was not having it.
That's the beauty of John, because why I am such a fan of John is because he's enduring, he's smart, but he's so naive as well.
Right.
To the point where he knows that he's right and he knows that something's going on, even though it's not, and other people can see it. And I've definitely been accused of being a troll on John's show.
Yeah, I thought you were trolling him on his show. That's what people in our subreddit were saying.
I was telling John, it's like I spent my whole career building up to the point where I control you. And then I don't know what the payoff is going to be, John, because he believed it. So whenever people would tell him via Twitter or however, they would say Vince is a troll. And basically that's probably why I got fired. Although I was a co-host for 2 or 3 shows. Really, I came in as a consultant for his channel.
Right.
And I wanted his channel to grow and do well. And believe it or not, I loved his original podcast. I'm not sure like what your channel's angle is relating to John, whether you like John or not, don't like John. But to me, I liked his podcast strictly as a fan.
Yeah.
And then when I consulted with him, I've represented a lot of people from the Stern Show and a lot of entertainment clients as well. But with John, I really did want to help him.
Yep. And you did a good job for him. I know that you're doing a great job for Shuli now. And you definitely helped him grow his YouTube channel.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And these are just small channels, both John and Shuli, right? So we have some clients that have, once you get over the 1 million subscriber mark, and they've been doing it for a long time. And there's some elements that almost anyone that wants to make money doing these podcasts, including yourself, the main thing is time. And the people that were doing it 8-9 years ago were putting in the time, and now they're getting the results. Another thing is consistency, and then another is theme. So with John and Shuli, they have a name. So I think I've heard you say once that it's easier for someone who's famous to come in and start. And that is true. But ultimately, for the long run, you have to have some form of good content and some form of really, really specified theme. So if yours is literally going over a different podcast, that's great. If it's making fun of John's channel and that's your theme and that's all your channel is, that's great, in my opinion, because it will keep you very specified.
Well, the reason why we've had success is because of our show format. And I truly believe that. We picked a show format that was, we're going to pull clips from other people's podcasts. We're going to analyze it. We're going to laugh about it. It's a roast style show. And we've stuck with that. And like you said, consistently every single week, put it out. Even when there were 200 people listening to now, we've continued to do that. And that is the recipe for success in this, for sure.
Yeah. The coolest thing about how the law has changed. I mean, I don't know if you realize that I was one of the group that started the High Pitch Eric 24-hour live channel.
I do. I listened to Stern back then. I remember that whole saga.
So even that was about 4 years ago, but to try and do a live channel, try and do a live show now, people have a hard time even going on Zoom. We had a 24-hour 1080p camera and microphone running in Eric's room.
Yeah.
And a lot of times he wasn't cooperative too. So we would have to send people in to do certain things. Now, YouTube at the time,
he wanted to murder you. He was threatening you nonstop, even though you were helping him out.
The coolest thing about my personality is that I won't take offense to what you say, to what Eric says. Obviously, Eric has, he's mild mentally retarded, and that's a technical term.
Sure.
His IQ, I will say that when I saw it on the show, it came out as 66. I'd say that's about right. And a lot of people don't believe that he's mild mentally retarded, but he is. So I don't hold what Eric says at all. He's threatened myself, my kids by name. The coolest thing is on the show, actually Shuli was on it too, Howard asked High Pitch how he feels about how my wife looks. And he goes, not my type. Now, my wife's got a good personality too, but I still play that for her every other month to knock her down a little bit, you know?
See, this attitude you have of being very laid back, taking things in stride, this is why you and John never were going to be successful working together.
100%.
He's quite the opposite.
It's a great point you make too. I say that especially at your level, if you're below, I don't even know what level, but if you're below 25,000 subscribers on YouTube, I'm not talking any other platform, because to me, YouTube is the real platform that I can judge, because it's just so much harder to manipulate. And also that's where the money is. Now, if you're below 25,000, even 100,000, and you block anyone on Twitter for anything, I mean anything, then I can't work with you, because it's just not worth the time, because you don't understand this industry at all.
Right. Yeah. And I remember you telling John that you're like, I keep telling you got to stop blocking people. I know. I'm going to stop blocking people. I know.
And that's why you got to love John, because you know that he won't stop blocking people. He'll never stop blocking people. And on Twitter too, I mean, ultimately he's got people that are really following him, but then they love to troll him as well. I say I'm not on Twitter, but it's just something that I could see happening, because people send me that John blocked me. Now I send them to my work email, it's fine. But the whole point was with John is that if you're going to grow, you need to actually allow the haters to come in.
Right. Yeah. And the funny thing is that the way he reacts to the haters makes it grow, because we did a show on his show back when he had Royce as his co-host. And it happened to be a pretty funny episode where he was going back and talking about his accomplishments in second grade, an A that he got in fifth grade. It was just the funniest shit that he was bragging about. So we're playing the Glory Days song and we're goofing on him. This was a one-off episode, and then we move on to another podcast that we review. John got so butthurt and responded in such a weird way with threatening lawsuits, threatening to break my legs, that immediately I'm like, oh, I got to keep listening to this guy now. And now we've had this ongoing feud going for years just because of the way he reacts to it.
I didn't know what your background is with John, but first about you. How old are you?
43.
All right, so we're about the same age, and you're a Stern fan?
Huge Stern fan, yep. And
right,
O&A, yep.
Right, so ultimately, like, John, to me, was amazing on the show. Sure. I go back and I listen to all the old shows. A lot of times I fall asleep listening to old shows. So that's really how I know a lot about him and the whole history with him. But relating to your feud with him, I mean, I don't know if you told me or someone told me that there's claims of defamation and lawsuits. Is there anything actively outgoing right now?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. And I don't know if you've listened to his recent show where he did threaten a lawsuit against me and told me it's definitely coming down the pike. Have you heard that?
I didn't hear it, but...
All right, I'll play a quick clip for you, and you don't have to react to anything here. I know that you've worked with John, you might have agreements with him, so totally cool. You are a very successful practicing attorney. You have your own practice in Manhattan. So I wanted to talk to you and just get your opinion on some things, if you're open to that. But just to set this up, this is what he was saying on his show.
Another person, I won't mention the person's name, although I know where he lives and I know who he is, has now committed libel and slander against me on his show. I have talked to my attorney, the great Michael Popok. You, my friend, will be seeing a lawsuit coming down the pike for making up an egregious lie that could hurt me financially by actually having the audacity to lie and say that I was fired from Stephanie Miller because I was a drunk.
All right. So this is what he's been saying on multiple episodes now, is that he has put in his retainer with his attorney and that the attorney is writing up the paperwork for this lawsuit. I want to start out by asking you, can you explain your understanding of defamation as it relates to a public figure?
Sure. Well, ultimately, I'm just going to give you general advice. This has nothing to do with John, and actually has nothing to do with anyone, because attorneys can't technically give legal advice without actually being retained by the client. So this is just generally.
Okay.
He mentions libel and slander. One is in written form, one is in verbal form. I don't believe, have you ever written anything about John?
No, I don't think he knows the difference.
All right. Well, anyway, ultimately, it's not about you and John. It's about anyone. So if you write about someone, it's a certain form of defamation, and then if you speak about them as well. There's an issue of whether you can be sued or held liable for defamation if you are speaking about someone who's in the public. Now, that varies from state to state. And in any case, if you're on the internet, sometimes it's hard to figure out which state's law to apply.
Right.
Ultimately, though, a public figure just doesn't mean that you're a celebrity. Generally, it will mean someone that is in politics or someone on that level. I don't know if, unfortunately for either of you, if you're going to qualify as a public figure. The real issue is, the practical issue when someone comes to me about defamation claims is, one, were you damaged? So let's just assume that someone says something about Howard Stern and they say it and it's false, and they know it's false, and Howard wants to sue for defamation. Well, Howard needs to prove that he was damaged because of that false statement.
That's the key.
Right. So, and it's easy for anyone to say. To get to that point, you have to pay for the lawsuit, pay for the attorney's time. And generally, attorneys aren't going to take these cases on contingency. So you probably are paying hourly. But let's just say you have a friend that's going to do it for you.
Yep.
When you file a defamation lawsuit, be prepared for whomever you file against to have the initial discovery taken against you, including a deposition. You're going to have to turn over all your financial records, because ultimately you bring a financial case. So you have to prove that you were financially damaged. That goes for almost all cases civilly. Yeah. So if Howard wants to bring a claim against you, let's say you said something about him, well, guess what? You get to look at all of Howard's bank records, generally his credit card records, and then he's got to prove that he was damaged. So that's one thing a lot of clients don't understand initially when they come in. They say, well, I want to sue for defamation. Well, first of all, were you damaged? And second of all, do you want people going through your financial records?
That's worth it right there. That's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah. So
I wonder if John knows if that's the case or not. So how difficult...
Again, I'm not speaking about you and John. I'm speaking generally.
I understand. So how difficult is it to prove damages? How would one go about that?
Well, not to get so technical, but if you make a claim about someone's ability to work,
yeah,
which let's say you say about Howard that he got fired from Sirius, and that's about his ability to work, then you don't necessarily have to prove damages initially to have a valid claim, but you do have to prove them, Howard will, to actually recover any money.
Right.
So in a general sense, if it's just you and I were just normal people, I say something bad about you, generally you have to prove that you were damaged financially and then prove by how much. So if it's about your work, your ability to work, if I say that you work for an internet company, if I say that you don't know anything about the internet, you suck, and then you don't have to prove that you were damaged per se automatically, but ultimately you're going to have to prove the amount.
Right. There has to be a dollar amount somewhere in order to make a case for this is how much the person would owe them.
Exactly. Now, what I love about John, I know you mentioned his second grade and fifth grade, and I don't know if I heard that, but I know great. Royce told him as well, John, stop giving your resume. Yeah. Have you ever gone and looked for, and I'm sure you heard about the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar roast that John wrote for, and the Poppins that he wrote for on Jay Leno's show, and then also how he made Obama laugh. So this is why I love John, because, and a lot of people have that insecurity where they have to keep somehow proving that they're in the entertainment industry or proving that they're a comic. And bottom line is, John was super successful in the entertainment. I don't know what you said about him in the past. I maybe don't want to hear that. But in reality, he doesn't need to keep proving it.
Right.
Why I love him is that he still has to prove it to you. And he'll tell you, I mean, how would I know about the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar roast? I've heard it probably 50 times. I never actually went to look for it, but I do want to check it out, see how good it was.
It wasn't even televised. That's what's so funny about it. It was like a private event that somebody threw. But that's still top of his resume. Also, I don't know if you know this, Vince, but he once prank called President Trump. Did you know about that?
No, I know that.
I know you do know about that. Yeah, okay, yeah, he's mentioned that a couple times. No, I'm joking with you. He brings up the same things over and over again. It's so funny. And I agree with you. A huge Stern fan. I loved Stuttering John back in the day when Private Parts came out and he did that little cameo at the end. I thought that was great. John, there was something endearing about him. And he's totally flipped on that and really turned people off now with his current attitude.
Agreed. So one thing that why John's show will probably stall is he doesn't have anyone to counter him. That's why I liked Royce on the show. Royce had a good voice, a good personality. He wasn't as extreme as John.
Right.
And where me, I can take the side of a Trump lover, or at least to counter what John was saying. That was what I said that I would do for him. And, you know, a lot of people email me that, oh, I loved you on the show. It wasn't really on for that long, but I was able to give it back to John, at least a countering voice, which this is why you love John and hate him too. He doesn't want to hear.
Oh, he doesn't deal with that very well at all.
Right. So he just wants to hear how everything is Trump's fault. I mean, we all know that John flew on his chopper, got a massage with, I believe it was Karen, on Trump's dime. Now, he also advised John on whether or not to buy a place down here in Manhattan. This is John and Trump. They were best friends. And now,
right.
as you see, but politics, not best friends, but they were.
He makes it seem like they were very close, right?
No, I won't say. That's a misstatement. They weren't best friends. They were, at least he knew him, right? And he wasn't an enemy. Now, actually, in fairness to John, AJ Benza threatened to kill Trump on the show. AJ Benza fought with Trump over a black girl they both loved, which somehow the media forgets. But Cara Young was the girl that AJ Benza and Trump were fighting over. And now AJ Benza is the hugest Trump fan and hugest Trump supporter.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's like they flip-flop. And that shows you how strong politics is. Right. And ultimately, people will choose their general political party of choice when it comes down to it.
All right, so I want to ask you this. And again, this is just in general. It's not about a specific case. But you have clients. If a client came to you and said, I want to sue for defamation because a podcaster said that I was fired when really I quit, would you advise that person to go through with the lawsuit?
Potentially. Now, ultimately, like I said before, because we're talking about his ability to earn a living, there are different standards. Now, that's in New York. I don't know what it would be out whatever law would apply. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this is for John or whomever else.
Right.
However, you have to show damages. So even if you can prove a case for liability, the second part is damages. And third part is, can the person pay, which they don't teach you in law school. But ultimately, I don't know. I mean, it looks like you got a fancy place there with that wood paneling.
Yeah, right.
That's in the basement of my grandma's house.
Yes, it was nice in the 70s.
Yeah, it must be an estate over there. So obviously that element is satisfied, right? So John knows, or someone would know, that you have money. But the issue is, where are the damages?
Yes. So let me ask you this. Let's say, because damages can't be proved, that they don't win the suit, could the person who's being sued potentially countersue for their legal costs?
Depends. It depends on the law that's applicable.
Okay.
And generally the answer is no, but in certain cases, defamation sometimes is one of them, where in our country, we do allow the losing party to recover attorney's fees. That's the huge issue. So when we say cost, it's really attorney's fees, because there are certain cases where even if you win $1, you can recover attorney's fees, even as a plaintiff. So if either, let's say it's hypothetical, but it's mirroring you two knuckleheads, I would say end it, don't bother. And then I would say probably bring it to some form of fun court, maybe a Shuli's court or Vince's court, and we can put together a jury and decide the case. Let's do that. Maybe you can communicate with John. We'll have a fair jury that you can pick out of, mostly whack packers, but they'll decide the case legitimately. And it will save both of you the time and trouble, because ultimately you end up, hypothetically, you'd end up getting virtually nothing and spending money. I don't think that. Now, there is a few defenses. If John or someone that we're talking about, if you actually said something that was the truth and you have that ability to put that as a defense, then there is no case. There's no liability, even if there is damages.
Right.
So let's just say Howard was fired from Sirius for drinking. You say Howard was fired from Sirius for drinking. Howard sues you for defamation. Well, there's no claim, because you hear truth is a defense to defamation. Now the issue is, though, if you guys bring the case against each other, where would it be filed? And what would the attorney's fees be? it's something everyone's got to consider when they go into these cases.
Right. So the other piece of this, when I was doing my research, and obviously I'm not an attorney, but the other piece is that you have to prove that the person had an intention to harm. Is that part of the defamation when there's a public figure?
Potentially. Again, every state is different. So depends on what law applies. Okay. So there's no real federal law that's going to apply to defamation. It's a state law. And even if you file in federal court, they would apply one state's law. And that's another issue as to what state's law would apply. Where do you live now?
I'm in New York.
What state? Okay. So if you're in New York and someone's suing you from Texas, it's a question of which state law would apply. So there's a lot that goes into these cases. That's why you don't take them lightly, and you don't file cases where there's no real damages. In the situation, the Howard case that we're talking about, he's got to show that for some reason your statement was one that is causing him not to get work in the future, and that's a harder thing to prove.
Right. I would imagine that'd be very difficult to prove. You'd have to show this employer was going to hire me and then decided not to.
Yeah, exactly. See, you're clever. You know exactly what it is. That's why it's tough to do. Now, like I said, if some states, New York in particular, where you live, they do that per se rule when you talk about someone's ability to earn a living. So you got to be careful when you're speaking about someone's ability to earn a living, because you can be held liable for defamation. But again, they still have to prove the damage amount, not necessarily that they were damaged,
right?
But the damage amount. So let's just say you talk about Howard's ability to earn a living. He doesn't have to prove that he was damaged because of you, but he'll have to prove damages to get something out of the case.
Well, the other thing that's interesting here, and you said that you don't know that either of us are public figures when it comes to this. So yeah. You know, I don't know if you know this or not, but John has another suit going against SiriusXM. I think you might have been working on this with him at some point. But anyway, neither here nor there. But in that suit, he's claiming that his celebrity is such that he has owed money from subscribers and advertising from the Howard 101 channel where his voice is still heard.
Yeah, and again, I can't comment on anything with the pending lawsuits, unfortunately, in this situation.
I know, I just wanted to bring it up.
but generally, like, let's just say, but just because someone pleads something, it doesn't mean that it's actually true.
That's true.
Right? So on one level, they may plead that I am a public figure, and then another, I'm not. Pleadings in a lawsuit are not factual findings. So it wouldn't really matter so much. I mean, technically you can use it, but it's not definitive.
So I guess my first defense on this is that I do a comedy show and it's kind of roast style. So we tell jokes, and I didn't mean anything that I said to be taken as gospel. I was actually trying to make a joke, which is why I set it up. I think you've heard the clip. I set it up with, I don't mean to be libelous or slanderous, but John was fired, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of proves that I was telling a joke on that. So if my intention was to get somebody to laugh and not get somebody to be unemployable, wouldn't that have something to do with whether or not they would be able to win that case?
Potentially. Now, the clip that you did send, I would say that you are potentially facing some liability, but I can't give you any advice one way or another.
Okay.
The time you hear people say, and Trump knows this as well, and Howard knows this as well, in my opinion. So if it's your opinion and it's not a fact that you're certain of, right, then fine. So you qualify with a statement with, in my opinion. Now, let's say you did make a defamatory statement against John. You can retract that statement. So,
okay. And
I don't know if you did or didn't, but I'm just saying hypothetically, someone can retract the statement and potentially that could eliminate any claim for defamation in a general sense.
That was going to be my next question, because what I did on the next episode was I documented how he quit Stephanie Miller, because he talked about it back in 2019 in June. So I pulled clips from that episode and actually documented, this is what John says happened. So I believe that's kind of a retraction, or at least could be taken as such. Yes? No? Maybe? You're not sure.
Oh, okay. No. I thought you were going to play a clip for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. I didn't have that queued up. But I do have a clip for you that I want you to react to.
What kind of goddamn show is this?
I do have a clip that I'd love for you to react to here, because there are things that John does that I think he's getting a little bit loose with the law himself.
This just came upon me. The person reached out to me and said he was a private investigator. And guess what? He found out exactly who the person is that is taking my beer on the balconies, and posting it on Reddit. We know your name. We know your social security number. We know where you live. I might divulge the state at the end of this show of where you live.
So that sounds like a threat to me when you say, I know where you live. And he's been saying this on the show a lot lately about specific trolls, people who goof on him. And he says, I know where you live. Is that a threat?
Again, I'm not going to give the legal advice, but let's just say hypothetically something was similar to that.
Yeah.
I know where you live. It's all about context, obviously.
Sure.
And knowing where someone lives generally is not going to be construed as a threat. But if you say it in a manner that's aggressive, not specific to what John just said, but I know where you live, as opposed to just saying, I know where you live, potentially it could be construed as a threat. Now, I've been threatened a lot, not just by high pitch, which to me is right. A different situation, but it's something you got to deal with. And when you get big enough, you'll see people will come for your, at least I'm talking in terms of YouTube, they will come for your channel. They will come and they will try to take you down, copyright strikes. They can SWAT you, which is so ridiculous in terms of SWAT, meaning people calling the cops on you. Actually, High Pitch did that to me once, unfortunately, because people were doing it to him, which is unfortunate as well. Like there's I'm very liberal when it comes to comedy, but doing that is just absolutely insane. But you're going to deal with that in this. So if you can't deal with that, I say to most people, get off Twitter, get off YouTube. Why even on it? Because you got to be able to deal with that aspect of the business. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make it long term.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's weird that you would get into these pissing matches where I know that whether it's John or someone from John's camp is going around and giving in these DMCAs on YouTube for people's videos that goof on him, and then they ultimately have to give up their home address because of that. And then they have to make a case for themselves and go through the YouTube court, which is really just a huge pain in the ass. And they always end up winning, but it's like, come on, guys, we're all just trying to have fun here.
Yeah, I mean, on certain levels, but for everyone who's creating content, obviously you don't want it to be reproduced illegally,
right?
In theory, right? Although we all listen to Howard's hours and hours of Howard on YouTube, and there's a whole another issue dealing with that type of replaying. But for you and everyone else, obviously the law has changed, and if you're commenting on someone's content, the law is clear, at least around here in New York, that won't generally be a copyright issue.
Yeah, it's
so that's what you see a lot now. Everyone's jumping on the reaction videos, and because that's the court specifically had ruled recently on that. So that's something that's sort of new in the legal field, and I'm just talking of YouTube in general law. But you see a lot of reaction videos now because of that protection that they have.
What about getting someone's social security number? Is that his PI is doing that? Is that legal?
It's so easy to get someone's social security number. I mean, like within a minute, I can have yours, right? Okay. So it's not hard to do. A lot of people don't get that. Like our parents guard a social security number as if it's like the end of the world. They would never give it up. Meanwhile, I can get all of theirs, right? So including, you can get the president's social security number if you want. It's so easy to get. Now, for me, I've had high pitch that ran into some bad people. I mean, like bad criminal people that were working with him. And they released my social security number, my wife's social security number on Twitter. This is back when we talk about like Twitter censoring during the whole Trump issue. Back in the day, they were allowing a lot to go. We couldn't even get that off for 30, 35 days. So my social security number is out in the public domain. Yeah. So I had to deal with that. I mean, high pitch giving my phone number out. I just dealt with it. Right. But the social security number went too far. And that's when I had to take legal action. But absent that, I don't think someone's going to publish your social security number. But if they do, you got to be prepared for that as well.
Right. Did you know?
So your question was, what was your question though?
Well, saying that I got somebody's social security number, I don't know, maybe it's easy to get, but is that something that's lawful to obtain?
Generally, there has to be a legal reason for it. So if a private investigator, potentially they can get it in terms of your social security number, what they do with it. Obviously, if they broadcast it or communicate it, that would be foolish on their end. That would be illegal. So it's more of a threat that people get scared about. So another thing I tell people in your situation, you may have these idiots call up and they'll give you grandma's last name or something that they find on a little bit better search than what you can do on like Ben Verified or any of these services online where you can get someone's information. And they may even give you grandma's social security number. And I'll say, so what? What are you going to do with it?
Right. No,
but they're there to scare you with it, right? So the point of someone saying that is to scare you. Can you get over that? Can you recognize that and not react?
Right. I agree. So Chad Zumock, I don't know if you know who that is. He was going to do Stuttering John's show and then said he was backing out because someone threatened to dox his aunt. And I'm like, what? Why are you taking that as a threat? Who cares if someone knows where your aunt lives? I don't even care where you live, let alone your aunt. It's the difference.
Right. Yeah. I don't even know what that is. But ultimately, that's true. A lot of people can't deal with it. So then why are you on here?
Right.
I mean, what's the point? Even saying a lot with Twitter, especially. And that's what John and I would quarrel over. It's like, why are you blocking people? Now, when it came to the YouTube channel, and YouTube's got different parameters now, but for the most part, people should be able to say what they want. And when I go through Shuli's thing, they say that I look like I'm dead, like I'm a Martian, my voice sucks, and it's okay. Like that's cool for Shuli because it's growing the channel for him, right? Yep. I'm not going to block anyone for that at all. I mean, at all.
The people who goof on me the hardest are fans of the show. I've heard everything about my physical appearance you could possibly say. So yeah, you just gotta deal with it.
What would they say?
Apparently I have very big teeth and there's some issues with my hairline and there's a number of things going on.
I got a good hairline.
Thanks, buddy.
Teeth are a little, I can see the teeth issue, but the hair is fine.
Oh, real quick. I want you to react to what High Pitch Eric said on my show. Since you're bringing up High Pitch.
Welcome to Who Are These Podcasts? White Power.
What do you think about that?
Well, with High Pitch, it's fun because when we quarrel, him and I will go a year without talking. And then all of a sudden we'll be in right behind home plate at the Yankees game. And I don't know if you heard that whole segment, but it went on like what High Pitch ate at the Yankees game. But then like they found out that he was with me. So I get the tickets purposely were on TV. So it's going to be funny for the show. And then High Pitch will not talk to me, but let's say we'll purchase a cameo with words in it so that eventually it may say Vince sucks or I would never listen to Vince's show. Don't listen to Vince's show, but then we can edit it so that it turns out to be Vince is great. Listen to Vince's show.
Right.
So you can get High Pitch really to say anything. I don't even think he understands what white power would be.
That was actually Shuli.
That was?
Yeah, he does the best.
Bullshit. Let me hear that again.
Yeah.
That did not.
He gave
bullshit.
me he gave me
play
a few
that
of
again.
These. All right, here's this one again. I got a couple more.
Welcome to Who Are These Podcasts? White Power.
Wow, that is Shuli.
Here's
another
another one.
Who Are These Podcasts? The Holocaust wasn't real.
I know he's got it so keyed in now. It's impossible to know. So I'll tell you this, Vince. I love your idea about if we're gonna have this out, let's at least make it content. Let's do it on the Vince show. Let's do it on Shuli's show. Let's have this defamation suit come apart. I'm all for it. I'm telling you right now, let's do it. John will never go along with it because he's not a fun person. He doesn't have fun like this.
It depends. If you challenge some aspect of John's ego, which he doesn't have he's not vain. This is what I love it. He's not vain at all. You make fun of his apartment, it's dirty, but there's a cool aspect to someone who's like that. Like he's not a vain person. So people they see John, he'll stories of when he's picking up a girl, like, why are you driving this old car? It's all dirty, things like that. And John has no clue. Most guys will try and at least clean their car before a girl comes over.
Right.
Certain issues. So he doesn't have that, which makes him very endearing and authentic. I mean, authenticity is the best when it comes to a lot of things, especially this industry. So he's got that aspect to him. But yeah, I agree that he probably won't do it, but he probably should. Now, if you two wager something that is valuable, right, onto the outcome, and you swear to the outcome, you'll hold to it, and it's a legitimate process, potentially he would. I don't know what you two would wager, but something that you both want, and see what the outcome is. Because potentially you do have some liability. You have to speak to an attorney and find out you yourself what you said potentially is that defamation. And then John, if I'm advising someone like John, not him in particular, is it worth it? Was there damages? It's a common general question that most states are going to have to answer.
Right. Well, I love the idea. I'm all for it. I would guess that what John would want is for me to stop talking about him. I'd have to think about what I would want in case I won.
That's actually a good thing. He would want that,
Yeah.
and that would be cool. So then you'd have to think of something else, and we can put together a jury pool, and you can make your selections, and then have the case tried and make the decision, and we'll see how it goes. Because I don't know, you two both seem like good people. Why can't you work it out beforehand? Settle your cases out of court before.
I agree with that, but. Vince,
so this whole thing is like, so your channel a lot was making fun of John and John's show?
Well, yeah. So what we do is we make fun of a different podcast every week, but now we have some reoccurring segments like Opie from Opie and Anthony, Stuttering John. There's a couple other people, Brett Hatley, except for he came on the show last week and made him. That's what's so funny. Brett Hatley, we goofed on a few times. He messaged me and said, Carl, I want to come on and rebuke this. I'm like, great, come on. And John could have done that too. This would have all been buried years ago.
Yeah, but that's not in John's personality, and for better or for worse. But now I'll say that John did not get his start easy, and he had to fight for that job on Stern, and fight for the job on Leno. This was not something that Leno did and in some way to go against Howard Stern. It's so fucking lame when I hear people say that. They'll say, well, John only got on Leno because Leno was trying to get back at Stern. It's not true. John almost didn't get that job. And John's an example of someone where you follow up. He had a follow up and follow up. I mean, you heard that audition tape, but that was just the beginning. I mean, obviously, when you hear that, you want to hire whoever is Pamela Anderson and Nicolas Cage, right? But as funny as that is, and you would think that would get the job automatically, but it didn't. The reality is they didn't even really want. Most of the people there necessarily didn't want to hire John straight away. He had a fight to get that job, and he did. So to be on a network show that big, I don't know how anyone can make fun of John. I mean, I know it's fun for you to do, but let's face the reality. The chances of anyone getting on that is virtually nil. Well, so you have to give him.
Vince, what we make fun, the angle that I take is that he got to that point and look at him now. Because that's really what's amazing to me.
Yeah, and then that's a sad thing about this type of industry, right? Because ultimately you're not an owner, you're just a performer, right? So there's workers and there's owners, and it's hard to be an owner in the entertainment world, because Howard Stern is rich, but he's not wealthy, right? He has some form of ownership, but he's not at that level of wealth where you're talking billions of dollars. So you ultimately your time is going to run out as a worker, and it's interesting. So it's tough, right? But he did it. He took the risk and he did it. There's no doubt in anyone's mind, John was successful, and not just the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar roast. I mean, that's a highlight for most people, right? Sure. But he was on a network television show. Yep. And did you ever hear the Stephanie Miller show before John?
No, I never.
I don't even know who that is.
I never heard of it before John.
Yeah. So I didn't even try to look it up or anything. I never knew John was any relation to it.
I think she was on Sirius XM, or maybe she still is. So it's pretty popular. It's very progressive. So it'd be on one of those left-leaning political channels.
Well, do you know who her dad was?
Oh, I did look that up. He was a famous politician. Who was he?
I don't even know, but I know that John got in trouble for not knowing.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Like she asked him. The weird thing about John is he is intelligent, as naive as he can be and is. He's also intelligent. Okay. So I know I don't know why you're laughing, but he is. Right. Yep. So there are some people that you'll deal with that have super intelligence, but they're naive in a lot of situations. Yeah. And John's going to hear this and get pissed. Whoa, why are you saying I'm naive? I'm not naive. And the beauty of it is that he is on certain levels. Like when I was on the show, there's a bunch of things that I would say. I don't even know if you ever picked up on it, but at one point I asked if his Susanna's husband or husband to be at the time would allow him to travel in July. Like some fans would write in and I'd ask him that question and he'd answer me legitimately, not even picking up on my humor, Right. Like so things like that with John are endearing, but he is smart.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I'm telling you, he's
smart.
I probably listen to more Stuttering John podcast than the average bear, and I don't see it, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it definitely took a turn when he got political. Same thing with Howard, right? It could be argued. But with John, there's no way about it. Trump's horrible, and I get that, but for his show, that's not why people want to hear Stuttering John. Like I was listening to hear Stuttering John. His day-to-day life is interesting. Hanging out at the pub when we know the name of his pub, right? That he hangs out at?
Pickwick Pub,
right? So obviously he's got a following, and look at us. We're talking over about John's pub that he goes to. But then when he starts talking about Trump, that's where his, whether he's naive or lack of understanding what people want to hear, he wants to tell that, and it just turns most people off, especially because he has no balance. It's just completely one-sided. And it was cool for me to try and come in there and say, like, I have no problem even coming there and say things that are specific to him and his kids. And if it had to deal, that's another thing. People like talk about kids. Now, my son, my daughter, their names are on in Howard's records and Sirius because High Pitch is threatening them by name.
Right.
Right. So, and then there comes a time when High Pitch is threatening my son. He's going to go to his school, tie him up, stab him. Now, look, most people will get offended by that. Yes. I don't.
Right.
I mean, because I know who High Pitch is. But still, if High Pitch said that about, if you had a child and he said about it, most people will get offended by it, especially on national radio. So can you deal with that aspect? John is sensitive about those issues.
Which, understandably, and I've never gone after his family or anything like that. I only make fun of his broadcasting ability, his current show. And I'll tell you that I don't know if you're paying attention to where he's at now on the Stuttering John show. Have you been tuning in a little bit? So he's gone 100% political, and he has these guests on, a lot of politicians and political pundits who come on and spout the extreme left thing. And there's an audience for that. I think he's kind of gotten rid of the comedy audience, people like you and me who want to hear about Stern, and now it's just people who want to talk about whatever, the left or the politics with Democratic Party. And people come in to watch his show, and he'll have 200-300 people watching live on YouTube, and you watch the live chat, no one's paying attention. They're all just have the same political mind, and they go in there and they just chat with each other the whole time. It's
all right, really so he's getting 200 to 300 live viewers, which is good. I mean, it's a good start.
Sure.
But the thing with his chat is, does he still have people moderating and blocking
non-stop
extreme?
Yes.
Right. So there's one thing where YouTube will even have now an automated system to block extreme stuff like violence that you're going to kill someone. But if you write in there, John, you suck, he'll block that, or someone will block that.
Yes.
I'm out. I'm telling you, I told him, I'm out. Even though I got fired, so I can't say John fired me. I don't want him to sue me for defamation. I'm out because it's not worth the time. Because you're never going to grow past a certain amount if you do that. So for me, I mean, I envisioned John to have at least 100,000 YouTube subscribers by now. It's been even a year since I left him. So I don't know what his channel's doing and how many views he's getting per video, but
I'll look it up right now. It was 11,000 last I knew, but let's see what he's doing. The Stuttering John channel. Where are you? There it is. 13.6.
Yeah, and it sucks because I mean he has that fame level. I don't remember when he was fighting with Revenge of the Nerds guys.
Yeah.
What their number was, but I think it was 15,000 at the time, maybe even 20,000 at the time. This is when, so I was telling him it's good for you to go after them and have some sort of conflict, but he's taking it seriously, serious conflict. I just wanted some back and forth banter, if at all. And I did like and the thing with John, the fun thing about John is, if you say, John, I like a bit that someone else is doing that's making fun of you, like British Stuttering John, which I did like.
It was funny.
Yeah, most people will go on and they'll kiss John's ass and they'll say, all right, they won't even say anything, or those guys suck, or fuck those guys. But I did like it, but I knew I intentionally said it. Right. So I didn't intentionally say it to get some troll value, whatever people were saying, but John had in the back of his head that I was a troll for someone, whether it was those guys or someone else.
Vince, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I just refreshed my memory on this specifically. So you're bringing that up because this is how you get these things going. Now, Revenge of the Nerds, Revenge of the Sis has 39,000 subscribers. So they're about 3 times the size of John. Right. So you saw this in advance and said, if we can mix it up with these guys, we'll get people watching our show, watching their show. It's good for everyone around. And when you brought that up, that bit was actually kind of funny. The look on John's face, he was enraged that you said that and then changed the subject immediately. It's you got to milk that. That's your chance. Like, go back at Vince and say, what do you mean, Vince? These guys aren't funny. You know, you could have like mixed it up a little bit right there.
That's what, all right. And why John is great is because he was pissed at me for doing that. However, he's got to get over the fact that we have to be able to fight it out and then move on to the next show. That's why I told, if you ever hear, like I tell Shuli at the beginning of our shows, you can say anything you want about me. You can say stuff about my kids. I won't give a fuck, right? I don't expect Shuli to do that, but anything, I mean, anything, like whatever it is, your shirt, make fun of anything you want. I will never get mad at you at the end of the day. Right. Because it's just, but it also has to be real. So you can't just go fighting people. I didn't know who Revenge of the Sith were. I don't know who they are now. But at the time, it was something where it was an authentic fight, which is great. But if I said anything good about him to stir John up, to stir some good show, he wasn't going to take it. You're 100% right. I think he fired me right after that.
Yeah, I think he did.
Or close to that. I think within minutes he fired me from that. So
the look on his face is so funny. It's just like he wanted to murder you after you said that. Oh,
and the thing with John is like he'll come around and like he'll eventually not apologize. He'll apologize. Like John's good like that. Like you're not dead to him. I hate people that do that. Like they never speak to anyone ever again for no real reason. He's not that sense, but no, he didn't get my aspect of what I wanted to do with his show. So, and that's the beauty of what it would have been, but it didn't happen. So look, I hope John's doing well. I can talk to John. And I have spoken to John, not about this, but in the past, after he fired me, because I did represent him on some certain issues, or at least we consulted. So it's like, and with a lot of people, I can't get into details, but even that sense, I have no problem them coming back to me years later, even if they need help.
Well, Vince, I really appreciate your time today. This has been a lot of fun and informative for me. So
how do we get? So the question is, are we going to? Well, I don't know. Do you communicate with John directly or just through legal papers?
We haven't communicated through anything legal papers. He's been threatening me for years with a lawsuit. I've never filed anything.
Yeah. In general, when we deal with any type of litigation, the threat doesn't do much. Like either you file and hit him with surprise,
right?
Or
I was on the Drew and Mike show yesterday, and they're going, Carl, you're being very cavalier about this. He's threatening a lawsuit. You're just talking about it. You haven't even sought counsel. I said, people who threaten lawsuits are not the ones who are actually filing lawsuits. If you're going to file a lawsuit, you just do it.
I don't know. John may hear this and think that he does have a case now, so he may actually go through with it. Look, John, anyone can file a lawsuit, right? Let's be honest. In terms of my industry, it costs a few $100s. Anyone can file a lawsuit against you for anything.
Sure.
It's a matter of, are you going to be held liable? I mean, you haven't made it, and it's true, you haven't made it until you've been sued. So, I mean, High Pitch Eric's guys and his crew, they sued me. It's in for like $5 million, something like that. And you deal with it. You just got to deal with it. And it sucks sometimes because people bring it up throughout the rest of your life. They Google search your name, and there you are with a lawsuit for $5 million for whatever it may be. So it's something you got to deal with too. It's another aspect of this industry. If you want to get bigger, you're going to run into this issue.
Well, I'll tell you from experience, there's a guy who I'm friends with named Dick Masterson, and he has a show called The Dick Show. Now, Dick Masterson, actually, I met the guys from Revenge of the Sith down in Tampa. We did a live show with myself, Dick, those guys. Dick was sued by his former co-host for $20 million because he was talking shit about him on his show. And it cost Dick a lot of money to defend himself, but it was ultimately thrown out of court. And these suits don't typically go real well for the person who's suing because it becomes a huge fodder for everyone on the internet. And when you lose, you look foolish. So I'm with you. I mean, part of me wants him to just go ahead and go through with it because I don't know how he's going to prove damage. It's going to be impossible.
Well, maybe you did damage him in certain ways. Who knows? We'll have to see. But
I like Vince. Throw some gasoline on the fire.
You seem overly confident.
I like it.
I don't know.
You don't think I should be? Fair enough.
I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to find an attorney in New York City or New York. Are you in the city or outside of the
No, I'm
city?
up in Rochester.
Okay. That's cool. I went to
You're to
University
Syracuse.
of Buffalo.
Oh, you went to UB? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So you know this area.
Undergrad. And I went to Syracuse for law school.
Yeah, so you're familiar with this shitty area.
I love upstate and Western New York person. But yeah, you'll be able to find an attorney. I mean, again, it's about damages, right? Is John going to be able to find any money after he wins his suit? That's an issue too.
Right. What are we plugging for you? Shuley Show?
We have the Shuley Show. What we're doing now is we're going through Eric the actor's life, and
he's the best.
What we have in store is really cool. We have Jan Janssen coming on for his first segment, and we're going to speak about when they were negotiating for Fringe, and Jan Janssen becomes sort of a bigger figure on the show, where initially Robin's making fun of him. Jan doesn't want to get a passport, so then they have to go up to Canada to film Fringe. Johnny's negotiating the deal. Jan is really not wanting to get his passport done online. He wants it to be done in person. So Jan's the person who has to bring Eric to Canada to film Fringe.
He was his character.
Ultimately, it turns out that like Howard and Robin realize Jan is the only sane one in the entire group between Johnny, Eric, and Jan, because he realizes that he's the one that has to actually bring Eric up. He has to lift Eric onto the toilet seat. He's got to bring him to Canada. So we're going to have Jan on. Then what I was thinking of, I want to do a call-in live show, which I want to get Shuley moving towards. Shuley's on his really separate path with his new company, but this channel, he's really left for me to play with in a sense. So for me, I'm a huge Eric the actor fan. A lot of people are. I never listen to him live. So we're going through and we're doing it about once a week, but the new segments coming up with Jan are going to be pretty cool. And we use a lot of the old content. We react to it. And then we try and get Shuley to give us his insight onto what was going on during that time.
I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I think Eric the actor was the best whack packer of all time. His phone calls were legendary.
Yeah, I mean, but who else is there really? If you talk about Hank the Angry Dwarf was great. It's a little bit before our time. And then Beetlejuice. Now, Beetlejuice has got more of, when you talk about the mental challenges that some of them have, like Eric, he was there, but it wasn't like he was mentally retarded or mild mentally retarded. He wasn't.
No,
he was just physically deformed. Now, they said his IQ is a 92. I don't know if that exam does have some physical aspects to it. You have to move blocks around. So he's probably had the average intelligence, but obviously hindered by his life. We're going eventually to try and two things that we have on our show that was our mission. Eric's syndrome was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. You ever hear of that?
I have not.
So that's what he's suffered from. It's not a disease, it's a syndrome. Apparently there's a difference. Ehlers-Danlos, those are the two doctors. It's a horrible name. So the thing we're doing is we're petitioning to have it changed to ELAS, so ETAS, Eric the Actor Syndrome.
Oh, wow.
So as opposed to just Ehlers-Danlos, which is it's hyphenated, it's a horrible name, it sucks. And we're making some calls to the foundation asking who the most famous person with Ehlers-Danlos is. I mean, obviously the answer is Eric Shawn Lynch, right? So we have those calls that are going to be broadcast soon, but it is a real mission that we're having. So ETA, I mean, people have said ETMS, but I don't use the M word ever. Right. I don't care. It's the one word I won't use. ETAS is the name we're pushing for. And then we're doing other things too, in terms of getting a live call-in show eventually. We want to have that so that Shuley, not that that's something new, but it's something where Shuley will be able to talk directly with the fans.
That's awesome.
Live on YouTube.
That's awesome. Yeah.
What about you guys? What's coming up next for you?
We have Elisa Jordana coming on the show this weekend coming up. If you haven't got enough of Elisa, her and her. I know who she is. Now I haven't heard that name in 5 years. That's Benji's old girlfriend, right? Correct. And Gonzo's old girlfriend. She's currently engaged to Andy Dick. So she's got some weird shit going on. Yeah,
that is weird. Actually, John, there's a show with John. John tried to hit on her.
That's why I believe. That's why I have her coming on the show.
Look at you. So I see what you're doing. So using me, all John's arch nemesis, huh?
Yeah,
so you're clever. I like that. Wow, John's gonna hate me now. So John's gonna think that I'm against him.
Listen, if there's anything you want me to take out after this, just let me know.
It's fine.
Okay. I don't want to burn any bridges for you.
And I don't want to be a part of a defendant in that lawsuit he's about to file. So
I don't blame you.
Leave it all in there.
I don't blame you at all.
Again, all the advice I gave today is not buying. It's just general advice. You hear a lot of attorneys say that. That's the reason why you hear that. attorneys give that disclaimer, but generally can't give legal advice to anybody without knowing the specific facts.
I understand. Can I just tell you real quick my favorite
I got
Eric the actor bit? And I mean, the Johnny, you know what to do was great. But as far as an extended bit, Eric the actor would call in every day to the Stern show. But then at one point, he got very frustrated, upset with Howard Stern not meeting his demands. So he vowed to never call in again. But he couldn't help himself. He started calling in as Derek from Texas. And he pretended to be a totally different person. And this is Derek from Texas. Was it Derek from Texas? Do I have that right?
I don't know. I don't know specifically what you're talking about. We have Derek appearing on the show probably in 3 weeks from now.
Oh, so Derek wasn't Eric then. They're different people.
No, there was no. So I don't know why people would think that.
Okay, fair enough. My bad. I'm incorrect on that.
That was a good bit. Now, look, you mentioned the controversy with Eric relating to the "you know what to do." That was completely fake.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know if I know it sucks to hear because I thought it was real too initially.
Yeah.
For years, I thought it was real, and then Johnny had told me about it. I represented certain issues with Johnny. Sometimes Johnny will mention Vinny on the show. He's got an accountant named Vinny or a representative named Vinny. Meanwhile, I'm as if it was a tough guy that was going to go in there and do something. But with that issue, Johnny was going on a show, I think it was called Identity, and he tried to somehow finagle Eric into, because it had to do with Johnny's father and the mafia. Mm-hmm. So he tried to have Eric make a tough guy call. Now, Eric came up with the words, but yeah, it was fake, unfortunately. So I don't put that nearly at the top anymore. A lot of people that are just casual fans will say that's probably their favorite bit. And for me, when he did it, and for years that I believe that was true, I mean, it was awesome.
It was hilarious.
But yeah, no, that wasn't real. So yeah, Eric leaves the show a lot. In fact, the last show we did, he's getting his first offer on American Dreams, and he left the show. So the guy's ready to give him an offer to appear on a network television show, and Eric's not speaking to them.
All so he ever wanted in life too, yeah.
Yeah, so what Eric does is he goes behind Stern's back and calls the showrunner directly, which then he brings it back to the show, of course. So that's on our, if you check out our last video, we did that on American Dreams. We're going to go through all 4 TV shows that Eric was on.
Excellent. So
yeah, I'm a huge Eric the actor fan, and we're going to move through that as well. So I'm glad. Any other Eric the actor trivia or information you need, I'm willing to jump right back on.
Awesome. Now, people can find that on Shuli's YouTube channel?
Yeah, Shalom Shuli. If you just Google Shuli, or some people know me as Vinny the lawyer because I dealt with Eric, and a lot of times on the show, that's what they would call me as well. Yep. But ultimately, this is fun for me. I love doing this aspect of it because I am a huge Eric the actor fan. I'm a huge John fan. Maybe you're not going to be so much after that lawsuit is filed, but still.
I don't know. I don't know. It might be good for me. I'm not sure, Vince. I might like that a lot.
No, I don't know. It sounds like you're going to be a financial supporter of John, not just a fan. If he gets at that wood paneling, if he gets a look at that wood paneling,
oh my gosh,
that's in your basement in Rochester.
Yeah, this Banksy behind me. It's not an original print, though. I promise you that.
I'm not that into Star Wars. I mean, I know that thing walks in the snow, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, it's fine.